Right, it's that time of the year again. When artists, writers, dancers, actors, fire breathers, crazy people doing things in the street, jugglers, skateboarders, roller skaters, Brechtian Polish performance artists head to the Scottish capital for the Edinburgh Festival. During the month of August, intrepid 4 o'clock show reporters, the comedian, actor and writer Sanjeev Kohli and his daughters Ruby and Belle have been testing some of the fun and games on offer at this year's Edinburgh Festival. Hooray!
So we made our way east out of the city of Edinburgh to the coast. We're here for a spot of lunch, but here's the thing, we have to find it ourselves. Now, the girls and I have teamed up with Fiona Bird, expert food forager. Hello Fiona, how are you?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you.
Okay, now Fiona, where have you brought us?
Well, we're just outside Edinburgh and we're going to be going down to the sea, looking at some seaweed, hopefully.
Okay.
But we've just happened to tread over something that I think looks worthy of a second look.
Now this is, first of all, explain what it is, what we're looking at.
Well, this is samphire, which is marsh samphire. There are two types of samphire. There's rock samphire. Marsh samphire and rock samphire can both be pickled, but I think this is really tasty, just eaten.
Now what would you think, girls? Looking at it now, I personally would, I would think that was just grass or something. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not that different.
Looks like mini cactuses.
Well,
Oh.
yeah, do you know, I think it does look like mini cactus. And in the old days, when you used to go and buy fish from a proper fishmonger's, you'd get a little bit of this put in your bag. And in fact, have you seen it in a fish shop? Ever? Yeah, so if you're worried about identification, that's quite a good thing actually. You could just go into a smart fish shop, have a look at it,
Yeah.
and then get yourself down to the beach.
Okay.
So is Ruby going to do some foraging?
Yeah, okay, so,
So
when we dot the roots,
chop
just,
that.
yeah.
No. Yeah, just chop it about there. What I would do here is just forage the bits I want to eat. Make sure I'm not grabbing any roots.
So just like halfway up.
Yeah, and put it in our bag.
Actually, looking at the sample close up, it does look distinctive now, like you say, a mini cactus. I've got a bit, maybe a couple of inches long, so wee bits coming off it.
It looks quite kind of succulent. Like,
It does look succulent,
quite
actually.
tasty. Do you think it
Should I-
looks juicy?
Mmm,
Brave.
I'll try a bit first.
that's
Yeah,
proper
try it.
succulent.
Oh my god. It doesn't look like it'll taste like anything, but it does.
Mm,
Rocket
nice.
salad in a way. I don't know.
I'm
how.
a really lazy cook, so in season, if we're not too worried about health, we just stir fry it in butter.
Oh,
It's
okay.
delicious.
That would sound-
Really good in a risotto.
Okay.
At the last minute though, because it doesn't need much cooking.
Yeah. I have to say, I love the texture. I love the way it explodes in the mouth because of the succulence.
Oh, it's really
But
good.
I would eat that as a snack. I mean, it's very,
It's
very
delicious,
subtle. It's a
isn't
very,
it?
very subtle flavour,
That's nice.
and I couldn't describe it. There's a saltiness, but
Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
beyond that, it's hard to say. So Fiona, well, I'm very impressed at how impressed my kids are with that. We've managed to get, in fact, that's Belle there, trying not to fall over, whilst collecting some samphire, which we'll probably cook up with some butter, like you suggested at home. But where to next? What can we forage for next?
Well, we're going to make our way to the sea, and should we just see what we find on the way there?
I believe that is the foraging headline. Let's do it.
Go for it. Is that a purple flower through there?
Now Fiona, we're just walking along there, sort of tramping through, not the heather, but the grass, and you must have eagle eyes. You just spotted a purple flower from yards away. Yeah. What do we think this is then? Let's get closer.
I think this is sea aster.
Okay. It's kind of like purple daisies almost, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you look at the leaves, are we going to do some more tasting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is, we're about to eat a leaf from the plant, yeah? Okay, so a pretty bog standard looking leaf.
Good in a salad?
Yeah, it's a slightly sharper version of maybe endive or...
Nice.
Mm.
You've got a foodie here. And you like that too?
Quite chewy.
Well, if I sound slightly out of breath, it's because we've been trudging for about 20 minutes. Very pleasant trudge, but a trudge nonetheless through damp sand. Fiona, where have you brought us?
I brought you down to the sea, and it's at low tide, which is when the forager needs to get out. So if we're foraging for seaweed, we want to be picking it way out where it's actually growing. The tide's so far out. I mean, a little bit of seaweed like this could possibly attach itself to a kelp.
Yeah.
This is dulse.
Okay.
It's not a very good sample, but it kind of looks a bit like a hand at the end.
Yeah.
And it's one of the red seaweeds. So you can forage out on as far out as you can get at low tide. I forage in a little shorty wetsuit, but I reckon we're quids in with our jelly shoes, aren't we?
Well, actually, you've got jelly shoes. Belle
Crocs on.
has got a Crocs on. So what I think we should do is if Belle could maybe help you
Yeah.
forage. Ruby, Belle, you've rolled your trouser legs up?
Yep.
Is that as far as they'll go?
Oh.
Don't mind getting a wee bit wet?
So we're going to go and look for some carrageen.
Now, carrageen sounds like an Irish
a bit
word.
like well, the Irish do their lovely milk puddings with it. Do you think it looks a bit like a Brillo pad? Is that a good description of it?
Yeah, actually, yeah. And what would you do with that?
Well, this is a setting agent. So if you're a vegetarian, you can use carrageen. Now, although it's called, it's part of, with the seaweeds, you've got the brown seaweeds and you've got the red seaweeds. These are both red, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And then you've got the green seaweed. Hopefully we'll find some green seaweed as well.
Well, we should send you and Belle forth to go find carrageen, young lady. I'll hold that. Go on, go.
Oh, it's so cold. For some reason, this is extraordinary because on the Outer Hebrides there's lots of carrageen, but it's usually growing on rocks, and I have to go way out at low tide, probably well over my knees, to find this. And there's not a huge amount of it for some bizarre reason. I don't know if they've had some storms around here. It's all been kind of washed up on the rocks. So do you want to describe?
It feels squidgy, sort of.
Wait, how about you compare it with the dulse?
Whoa,
Does it feel?
big difference.
Does that feel smooth?
It feels very smooth. This feels smooth. Feels like ham. I don't know what else to
Do you
explain.
know, this has got little hands. Can you see? Feels like someone's got frizzy hair. Do you think?
Yeah, that's it.
So when you're going out and you're foraging, especially if you're foraging somewhere that you haven't foraged before, as we are, it's really good to have some local knowledge, because although you can look at your website, you just don't know how the tide is going to come in. So you want to make sure that you've got a mobile phone with you, but little people should always go with a grown-up, and hopefully a sensible grown-up that's not going to get you stranded. Wow! That feels even more bristly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's some more carrageen. We can collect this, and can you see down there? There's some that's white. There's lots of carrageen here. If you're foraging seaweed, it's like if you're foraging anything else, it's a really good idea to have a separate bag for each seaweed. Otherwise, it's a nightmare when you get home.
I suppose you're in a strangely dichotomous position in the sense that obviously you want to shout from the rooftops about the advantages of foraging, but equally you don't want every Tom, Dick and Harry grabbing a handful of gorse or whatever. You have to strike that balance, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think foraging for me, especially getting kids to forage, is about every Tom, Dick and Harry having the wherewithal to get out there and do it and not be frightened. I think everyone can cook and everyone can forage.
Sanjeev Kohli and his two girls, Ruby and Belle. You're listening to the 4 o'clock show on BBC Radio 4 Extra with me, Mel Gedroych.